Introductions, as Jan said, my name is Amir Chitayat. I'm one of the partners at Open Moves. We're actually Tab members and Tab vendors. We work with Tab Corporate, and we work with many of you and many Tab members. We're located on Long Island, and we are an email marketing and search marketing firm. Today we'll talk about email marketing best practices. So whether you're starting with email marketing or you're pretty advanced, I think you'll get some good tips out of this. We will mail you a link to the presentation, as well as if you don't have an Open Moves account, you'll get a free account for a month, as well as a Tab discount for anybody that's on this webinar. You could either reach me at my email address here, and I'll have it at the end as well, if you had any questions that are specific to your business. So why are we talking about email marketing? As we can see here from tips from the top that I'm sure many of you get, it's a very cost-effective marketing channel. It actually has the highest return on investment from any marketing that's out there year after year. It's typically regarded as the best mechanism to generate leads or sales from people that already know you, whereas SEO, for example, is the highest rank for getting new leads. So it's a great engagement tool. It's very quick and fast, as many of you have done, created emails in the past. It's targeted, meaning you can send a different email to your clients versus your prospects versus your referral sources. It's very interactive, such that just by a click on a read more, you go to someone's blog post or e-commerce site, and you can read more about what's there. It's very measurable, and I'll go through a bunch of slides at the end of the presentation as far as what kind of analytics you have within the typical platform. So it's very much like Big Brother watching, where we can see that someone opened, clicked, purchased, forwarded, etc. And lastly, I look at the tool as very integrated. Email marketing is one of the marketing channels that you have. You may go to trade shows, you may do seminars, you have social media, you have a website. But email marketing is probably the best tool out there to integrate all of it together, kind of like the glue that puts it all together, where once a week or once a month, you reach out to your constituents and you let them know something about what's going on. So whether, depending on the strategy that you have, you may have different types of email campaigns, and I'll show you a variety of examples with different case studies. For almost all of us, we're looking for lead generation. We're trying to get new prospects. So there's a different type of an email for lead gen that may be for lead nurturing, where someone already is in touch with you, and maybe you have a 2-3 month process until they'll make a decision, and then maybe you're going to drip on them some kind of a lead nurturing drip to just stay top of mind. Retaining clients, maybe a renewal of an agreement, resubscribing, things like that. That's kind of like staying top of mind, whether you're in a professional service like legal or accounting, or you're a manufacturer. There's always that. And driving more engagement. If I'm trying to drive more people to the website, driving more people to my social media, that will be a different type of an email than it is when I'm trying to, let's say, sell online, where I'm trying to maximize my conversions. So the point here is that it's not one email does not answer all of these. You have to kind of tailor them based on what your goal is. So as far as email marketing, the first thing is you need a list. Okay, so many times people would ask me, when should I start email marketing if I'm a new business? And usually I would say, once you have more than 100, 200 names, it's worthwhile. And then the frequency obviously will depend on the kind of business that you have. So how do you grow your list? Because that's a challenge for all of us, because even those of you that have been using email marketing for, let's say, the last few years, you probably know that you have a continuous churn. The typical churn is that maybe 5 to 10% of your list is going to go stale every year. And that's because people move, they change their email addresses, they may be unsubscribing. So just typical, so don't take it personal, which means that just to even stay afloat, you need to grow your list by at least 5 to 10% a year, and you'd really like to do a lot more, of course. So obviously, if you have a Rolodex full of clients and prospects and you didn't get their email address, then obviously go through that effort. Make an effort on your social media to put a sign up for your email marketing, as well as obviously on your website. Let me show you a couple of examples. So typically our recommendation would be that every page of your website, not just the home page, would have an email sign up. As we can see here from this company here, Snow Joe. Sometimes you put it on the top right, which is what we'd like to see. But if that real estate is too busy, then you can always have it on the footer of a page. But the recommendation is to do it on every page. And you can always have a statement there saying something like, we're not going to rent or sell, and it's only promotions or information that is specifically to you, yada, yada. And sometimes you may even have a link to an example of what it may look like, such that they know that you're not a spammer. So highly recommended to do it on a site. Another way of doing it is with an email pop-up, or some people call it a popover. That's probably more for e-commerce sites or more B2C sites than it is for B2B. But and I'm sure it's annoying when you go to a site and you do it, but I can tell you that it works. It really will increase your email signups. And the key thing is that you use a smart pop-up where it only may show up maybe 2 or 3 times. It gets the person gets cookied, and once they sign up, they never see it again. So you don't really abuse it, but it really works. Do any one of you have a pop-up on your current website?
No.
Okay, so it's something worthwhile considering. On the subject of list, in terms of, one, we talked about having people subscribe, but it's also really important to make it easy for people to unsubscribe. Because you may not realize that, but sending a lot of emails to people that don't read your emails actually impacts your reputation. In other words, if you're sending a lot of emails to Gmail addresses and only 5% of them ever open your email, Gmail actually looks at it and says, wow, this person is sending to 95% of their database, never opens their email, and they keep on sending emails. Therefore, they're not really listening to their subscribers, and as a result, we're going to actually give them a lower reputation where some of your emails may end up in spam or in junk. So it's really important to, and we'll talk about how to segment non-engagers, but it's important to make it very easy for people to unsubscribe. Don't hide it. And also monitor your replies. In other words, some people are too lazy to look at where the unsubscribe is, and they'll just hit reply and say, take me off this list. And many people never look at those emails because it just goes into someone's folder. So do look at it, because you can actually get in trouble if they ask to unsubscribe several times and you don't. They can report you and actually can really blacklist your reputation. So important to have an easy unsubscribe and also monitor email replies from that perspective. Okay, let me give you a couple of tips. The first tip really is that just like the homepage of your site is really important to you, so should your email template, because the emails themselves are really a reflection of what you look like in your branding. So you don't pick up some canned template and just change the brand or the color, but you really want to design something around your value proposition. The second thing that's really important, that's more in the last year or two, and Carol, you were saying what's new, and this is one of the really important things that's new, is that today, especially in the consumer end, but also in the business-to-business end, in some cases over 50% of the emails are read on a smartphone or a tablet. And I don't know if you receive, and you look at some of the emails that you receive on a smartphone, and some of them look really bad, and they're just not enticing for you to read. So it's important, first of all, to just recognize that a lot of the emails are being read on a mobile phone. If you use our platform, we kind of give you, we tell you how many, what percentage of your readers and who are reading them on a phone. So let's assume that you have 25% of your recipients reading it on the phone. What you should do is just basically make the email mobile friendly from a design perspective. The easiest way to do it is just to have a single column design rather than 2 columns. But the more complicated way, which is actually very popular today, it's called a responsive design. It's a design that adapts to the screen size. So this particular email here is responsive. What it looks like here on the right-hand side is the desktop version, which you can see it has a two-column design. But then we can recognize that you're seeing it on a smartphone, and then boom, it changes it to a single column where it puts one on top of the other. So it just makes the experience more pleasant. You can get more engagement, easier for people to click. They don't have to pinch and zoom in and zoom out all the time. So I wouldn't say that responsive is better than just a mobile-friendly design. It really depends on the kind of business and how frequently you do it. But definitely take into account the mobile reader. And it's important also to add the text version, because if they don't have their images allowed, then the text version is all they'll see. And lastly, what I want to tell you is that not all emails look the same. So depending on what kind of platform your recipient is reading it on, it may look different. And in some cases, it may crash. So it's really important to test for readability. You don't have to do this every time you send an email, but maybe once a quarter you run through a test. There are platforms out there. We've embedded in ours a platform called Litmus. So within our Open Moves platform, you have Litmus built in, or you can just sign up for Litmus independently. They charge you some kind of a nominal fee per month, but that allows you to really see what your emails look like across all the different platforms. And if you see one that's really broken up, you have to go in there and fix it. So it's really important in terms of your QA, because you may spend 5-10 hours on a newsletter to send out, and then you really don't want it to kind of crash when somebody is looking at it in Outlook or in whatever it may be. Okay, let me show you a couple of examples of the kind of newsletters and emails that you should consider for your business. The first one, which you probably all should look at, is the newsletter, meaning it's a way to communicate and stay top of mind without necessarily trying to sell. It's ideal for B2B. It's ideal when you have a lot of content to share. I'll show you a couple of examples. Mount is actually a Tab member in California. They're a manufacturer of all kinds of drill bits, so they send, I think, a weekly email with all kinds of tips and best practices. Here on the right-hand side, Henry Schein is a large medical distributor. And you can see this is a more mobile-friendly design, and this is less so, and it's very much dependent on who their readership is. But you can see that a newsletter like this typically is a bunch of articles with a read more. So you're kind of throwing a net out there, very much like tips from the top, where you're not sure what someone may be interested in, but then you're throwing a net out there and not sure what fish you're going to catch, but there's something in it for everyone. So very effective, top of mind. You can brand yourself, your business. Works very, very well. This is something that we would recommend for just about any business to do once a month. If you have a visual business, like an architectural or design or landscaping, something like that, your newsletter is going to be a lot more visual, which would look like this. So it's more eye candy, where the pictures are doing the talking rather than a lot of words. The second type of an email after the newsletter is what we call an e-blast. And that is usually something that's very specific, targeted with a call to action. A lot of the spam emails that you may receive are like this. They're trying to get you to buy something with some kind of an offer. So what do these look like? It may be Briggs & Riley suitcases are trying to sell you to go and, right now be on this Caribbean beach, which we all would love to. Or this is a Tab example, actually, of an invitation to a webinar or a seminar. So very specific and to the point. We're not giving them a lot of information. And these are more B2C examples. This is an e-commerce site for vitamins. So, just big offer trying to tell you what to buy. Or this is a designer of jewelry, really high-end jewelry, and he just does it with images. Alexandra just does it with beautiful images in terms of trying to get you to click and go back to the site. No words. So these are the e-blasts. The last thing, which actually I love the most, is what we call automated drip emails. Typically, you would deal with these after you've done at least one or two of the other, like a newsletter or an e-blast. But in some cases, you may start with automated drip emails. What automated emails mean is that you write them once and you use them many times. So you don't have to think about the email for April, but maybe we wrote it in January and it's going to run through the whole year. So let me show you a couple of examples. This is an example from REI that I'm sure we all know, where when you sign up for something or you register for an account, you're going to get a 3-part email drip over a 3-week period that welcomes you to their culture. So think about your own business. It may be somebody just signing up for your newsletter, and maybe they're going to get a couple of emails as a welcome. Maybe somebody that you just signed up as a prospect. Maybe it's a lead form where anybody that signs up for some kind of a lead on your website. I was talking yesterday to a moving company where every time they have like a call to action on the site for a free appraisal, and then once you put in the information, they know that it takes between 3 to 6 weeks for someone to make a decision to buy it from them or from their competitor. So we're creating a 6-week drip where every week, that person is going to get an email talking about the service, etc. While in parallel, they may have a salesperson or a telemarketing person calling them up. So you're kind of keeping top of mind with email as part of the process while you're also following up using the phone or whatever mechanism. So a welcome drip works beautifully. It could be a birthday email, works the same way. So every birthday, every anniversary. Maybe if you have clients with contracts, then it could be 30 days before the end of the contract. Automatically an email goes out telling them about some promotion for re-signing up or whatever it may be. Okay, a more sophisticated example of automation in email is what we call dynamic content. So if you see this particular email for a car dealer, it's actually all the same email. It's just that the image and the offer change depending on what they know about me. So if I'm interested in an Infinity and Carol is really a Maxima person, so Carol's email is going to be with the Maxima here with the 25%, $2,500 off, and I'm going to get the $2,000 off the Infinity. So again, think about your own business. What this means is that instead of sending 4 different emails, this company is sending one email with dynamic content. The content is changing dynamically based on what they know about me. So in your business, it may be gender. It may be whether it's a prospect or a client. It may be based on geography or other kinds of demographics. So maybe it's based on behavior. So it could be that the offer changes or the picture changes or all the words in the first article change based on what I know about you. This works very, very well in e-commerce and can work very well in, obviously you must know something about the list. So we always encourage you to know more and more about your list. If you have an e-commerce company, then it's very easy. You know people that bought versus registered, when they bought, etc., and you can dynamically feed them content based on that. Was there a question? Guess not. Okay. One of the fun things in automation with email marketing is what we call cart abandonment triggers. And I'm not sure if any of you have an e-commerce site, but I'm sure you buy on e-commerce sites. So I'm not sure if you've received these emails before, but basically about 70%, 65 to 70% of all people that put something into a shopping cart online actually abandon the cart. And it could be because of something objective like shipping cost, or it could be that dinner is on the table, or they had an interruption, or the phone rang, or they just decided that maybe it's not the time and they'll try to come back to it later. But most times they forget, right? I mean, we forget because we do so many things every day. So the purpose of these email triggers is to remind you and to try to recover you. So we put some script on your website. We recognize when they abandoned the site and did not purchase. And maybe an hour later, you're going to get an email saying, oops, we noticed you left something in your cart. Click here to buy. And then maybe you get another one a few days later and another one a few days later. But if you did buy, you're not going to get another one. So it works very nicely. What happened here? Sorry. It works very nicely, and typically we can see a conversion of, I don't know why this is something. Sorry, guys. my mouse acting up? Okay, here we are. I'm not going to use the mouse. I'll use the arrows. So typically the kind of conversion we can get is between 10 to 20% of those people that abandon actually come back and purchase. So it's a no-brainer. Oh, you know what? I didn't even touch this and it did this. That is not good. Okay. Content. For those of you sending emails, you know that this is the toughest part of email, is how do I come up with what to write about every time? Okay, it's not easy. So, what we say is we have the who cares test. You got to write about what's important to your readers and not what's important to you. So it's not about, you just hired a new admin or you added 1,000 square feet to your warehouse. Who cares? Maybe your mom's really proud of you, but nobody else cares. So you really need to talk about things that are important, like maybe news, best practices, case studies. Promotions are fine because it's, you're giving something for your recipients. But it needs to be something for them and not about you. Now, you know that intuitively, but sometimes we get lazy. And this is from a Sherpa. Sherpa is an online publisher, and they did this in terms of what are the most effective email marketing tactics that work out there. And you can see that the top 3 are really delivering relevant content, so 2 segments, which we'll talk about in a minute, emailing to house lists. So sometimes I get a question, well, what about renting a list or buying a list? In general, I really recommend against buying a list because typically you'll get very poor results, and you can see that it's the last one on the list here. So you spend all that effort, and you're really not going to get much for it. And then event-triggered responder email. So these are these automated triggers that work extremely well. So, relevant content, emailing to your list, people that subscribe to your emails, and then doing some kind of automation are the 3 things that really work, according to Sherpa. So, let's say that now you're sending these emails out. What is reasonable and what is great performance? And we typically measure emails by open rates, click-to-open rates, and a few other parameters. So let me share that with you. So typically, the unique opens, in other words, we know that you open an email versus someone else. Typical results are somewhere between 10 to 30%. So if you're in that range, you're doing well. I mean, you'd like to probably be, we typically would like to see our clients at 20% and above, but it really depends. And in some cases, you may just be sending to a very old tire list, and that's why your percentage is down because remember we said that there's churn in the list, but if you have not been conscious of adding new names, then obviously the percentage will drop all the time. And the second thing that's important is click to open. For those of you that get tips from the top, I mean, we went through a change with corporate about a year ago where when people sent tips from the top, they had great open rates, but the click to open was very poor. And the reason was that all the articles were actually within the newsletter itself. In other words, you didn't need to click anywhere. So we didn't really know if people read the email or they just opened the email. Did they spend 1 second or 1 minute on an email? So one of the things we did together with corporate is that we basically just created teasers. So there is now short little blurbs, maybe with an image, with a learn more or read more, and then we can monitor those read mores, and we can see that then you went to the blog, and then maybe you browsed some more pages. So you can really increase your engagement and your click to open by these teasers. And typically, depending on the kind of business, it may be anywhere from like 5 to 30%. If it's e-commerce, it's going to be very high. If it's something like tips from the top, it may be more like 10%. And one of the most important things that I tell people, especially if you're sending a lot of emails out on a monthly basis, is don't get stuck just on the percentages. I mean, look at the total opens, clickers, and visitors, and not just the percentages, meaning sometimes the easiest thing to get better results is to simply email more. So let's say you, like within our platform, we have a remail function, meaning that you email the newsletter, but then you can automatically tell it to send it to the non-openers X day later with Y subject line. So typically what that does is the result from the second email are not going to be as good as the first. So the open rate and click-through rate will be lower. But when you look at the overall number of people that open that email and the overall clickers or conversions, it's going to be a lot higher. So, just a cautionary note that don't get stuck on 10%, 30%. It's more important to see how many people actually opened, clicked, generated leads, or bought something. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so we talked about some performance, and then how do you improve performance? So as you can see from this cartoon, this is very typical. We see a lot of people, they'll say, oh yeah, I'm going to do an A-B test. And then they do an A-B test, they change 2 different subject lines, and they say, okay, well, one did better than the other. And so, well, what did I learn from this? So in many cases, it's really important to know how to set up the test. But this is really important. So a couple of important things here. If you're testing, the first thing usually you want to do is just make sure that you maximize your opens. In other words, that people are actually reading your email. So typically that's done through a subject line test and maybe some personalization. So same email goes to 2 different lists. It could be fully automated through the platform and with 2 different subject lines, and then you see who did better. Once you got the open rate to be to a certain level, then you may look at clickers. I want more clickers, more people to click on something. And that may be playing around with where is the offer, the location of the offer, the type of offer, maybe giving a free audit versus something else may work better than other. Or maybe it's a design. This is a good way to actually test the mobile design, as we talked about before, where it could be that your offer is too far down and a lot of people are reading it on a mobile device, so they have to scroll down to see it, and that's just poor design. So a lot of people are not seeing it. And I'll show you later a heat map, and you can see how quickly you can see that. So really important in terms of the clickers, and again, the key thing is that you're going to be splitting the list maybe into 2 and do one, the version you always did, and one with a test and see which one does better. Engagement is what I just talked about with tips from the top. I mean, tease them with a read more. If you have a blog, or if you have content on your website, white papers, things like that, don't give all the information in the newsletter or in the email. Just tease them with a read more or some kind of a call to action, and let them go to the website or the blog or the social media and read more there. And then if you're trying to get them to convert meaning not a religious experience, of course, but either to become a lead or to become a client, whether you're inviting them to a seminar or whether there's some kind of an offer, test it when you put the actual offer in the subject line or more of a teaser, see what works better. The offer itself, play with the wording and the design of it. And what's really important is the landing page. When they click on an email and they go to convert, whatever that is, it should be that landing page is designed with the idea in mind, where it maybe looks like the email or something like that, so that it's very worthwhile. And what's really important is that you only test one of these things at a time. Don't test more than one variable, otherwise you'll never know what worked and what didn't. And try to do it like 2 or 3 times. So you can test a subject line concept, twice, 3 times. Then you kind of get the message, and then you conclude whether you're going to use A or B moving forward. So this is a good, simple way, and we have a couple of blog posts on our blog, in terms of how to do this. Okay, this slide is aimed at those of you that are using email and want to get to the next level. So it was A/B testing, actually. Email is just one of the many things that you do for marketing. So where should you focus your time? And these are kind of like the 3 areas that from left to right, okay? So the easiest thing to improve your campaigns is that brown arrow, increase send frequency. Simply send more. If you're sending a newsletter that has 4 articles, maybe once a month, maybe send it twice a month with 2 articles. You try it, and you'll be surprised at the results. People are usually very, very afraid to increase the frequency of the email. And I think a lot of it is personally because you're concerned. I mean, you don't want to get more emails, so you think everybody else doesn't want to. And it's correct. It's true. But the reality is that we don't all read the same emails every day. So generally, it really works to send more emails, to resend an email to those that didn't open, what we call remails. And the only cautionary note here is that kind of like put on the gas, send more frequent, but watch for the unsubscribes. So basically, if you have an unsubscribe rate of 0.5% every month, which is a typical number, then as long as you don't go over 0.5% when you went from one email to 2 emails a month, you're doing perfectly fine. And you'll see that you'll have more people opening and more people engaging. So that's very, very easy to do. The next thing is obviously increasing the list size, as we talked about, with a pop-up, with sign-ups, with things like that. And the last thing is to better optimization, and that was the A/B test that I just showed you. Doing some kind of optimization that requires a lot of work, a lot of time, and usually when you do the A/B testing, you actually drop your results a bit because one of those variations is not as good as the other. So, I would increase frequency on a regular basis, increase list size on a regular basis, making sure you have pop-ups and people can sign up and it's very visible, etc. And do optimization maybe once in 6 months, once a year, depending on how frequently you send emails. Any questions so far? I don't know how many people joined us, so I don't know if I'm talking to myself or to 10 people. Okay. Let me show you a couple of slides from actually from our platform, which is a kind of a typical enterprise level platform, and to see what can you do with these emails. So the first thing obviously is to create a template. So typically most platforms today will have a lot of easy to use templates. We have a lot of them, and well, again it does this. Sorry guys. Don't know why it's doing that. I didn't even touch a thing. It's like it's listening to me. Okay. I'm trying not to breathe. So basically picking your template, you can see that some of these templates have 3 little icons next to them, a tablet, a mobile device, and a desktop. What that means is that these templates are responsive. In other words, they will automatically change depending on what you do. So what's nice now about this editor is that you don't need to know any HTML. It's kind of like drag and drop, and you can create the most beautiful email template without knowing any kind of coding. So very, very simple to use. And we offer that as a service, whether if you don't want to do it yourself, we'll do it for you, or you have all the tools to do it completely on your own. Now, once you send an email, what's the kind of information that you look at? And at the most basic level, you're going to look at how many, and we can see in this case, there were 20,000 emails sent. They had a 14.67% open rate. We can see who all those people are. We can see that and on the interaction in the second category below, they had 11% click-to-open rate. That's pretty decent. And we can see also where people open the emails on the right-hand side. So they had 33% on an Outlook and 16% on an iPad. So, this particular email should be mobile-friendly because they have quite a few people that are opening these emails on a mobile device. So important to take kind of like a cursory look. And for some of you, you're just going to say, okay, this sounds great, good, move on. Or for others, you'll say, okay, I want to use this information now to grow my business. So I may look at the people that clicked on more than 2 links or more than 1 link, or people that opened my email, kind of scan the list very quickly and say, hey, this guy, I've been trying to reach him for the last 6 months. He never responds. He just opened my email and went to my blog post. Maybe I should give the guy a call or send him a personal note or whatever it may be. So you're not going to tell them that, hey, I just noticed, Joe, that you opened my email and you spent 1.5 seconds on my website. But you're going to say, hey, Joe, how are things going? And he'll say, oh, funny you called. I just looked at your email. So it works. And if you have any kind of telemarketing services that you or your clients use, the best advice is send an email out and let the telemarketers focus first on the engagers rather than call everybody on the list. Heat map. We talked about it before. So this is a vitamin company. This is the email they send out. How do they know what people clicked on? So we have a heat map that basically tells you for every image and link that's on the email, where did people click on? such that they know what's effective and what's not. This is really important when you do an A/B test in terms of what's working and what's not. Maybe you want to know where people are clicking or where people are opening. This is actually by open. So you can very quickly geographically see where people opened, and you can segment them and do something with that information. Now, segmentation is really important. We have a really terrific segmenting tool within the platform. I'll show you two examples here. I mean, the key things with email marketing is really don't treat everybody the same. I mean, actually, if you think about it, it's the key thing about any kind of marketing, right? We don't want to be treated like a herd. We want to stand out from the herd, and we want to have some personalized information. I mean, probably the best at that is Amazon. So in this case, for example, you can see we built a segment, which you see on the top right in yellow, as these are people that have not opened or clicked on an email in 2013 for this client. So I can very easily, with a drag and drop segment builder, build a segment, say, okay, tell me all the people that never opened an email all of last year. So in this case, we see there were 2,600 people. So maybe, I'm not going to take them out of the list, but maybe I'll treat them differently. Maybe I'll send them an email only when I have something really important, or it's a great offer, or whatever it may be. And then I'm going to monitor these guys differently than the ones that are kind of like my loyal readers that do it on a regular basis. So don't treat everybody the same. You could say, I wanted to segment all the people that opened at least 2 emails last year and clicked on 3 links and belong to this list and were in this geography or whatever. So you can build any kind of a segment here, literally in fractions of a minute, in seconds, and then you send it to those people. So it's very, very effective. Another way is by purchase behavior. So if you have an e-commerce site, we can pull all the data from the e-commerce sites into the platform, and then we can say, okay, I want to segment all the people here that, what did we do here, that purchase dresses before or after June 30th, because I want to send them an email about scarves and shoes. So you can segment based on what people bought, when they bought, what they bought, as well as based on their behavior on your site and in your email. So it's very, very powerful. Now, admittedly, it does require a little bit of work, but you'll see such better results because the point here is sending quality rather than quantity, and that's what this gives you. And then we have a really nice kind of like easy what-if-then flowchart builder. In other words, those triggers that we talked about, whether it's a welcome email or a cart abandonment or a birthday. So, rather than, you don't need to program anything or something like that. You can kind of drag and drop on this drawing board and you say, okay, here is somebody enters, I send them an email, and then I wait 7 days and I see if they opened, and if they didn't open, then that's fine. Or if they did open, and then I'm going to send them number 2 or number 3, whatever the reasons may be. So the goal really for most of the email marketing vendors, and us included, is to make it really easy for you to use the kind of tools that are available here. So, if you did this 5 years ago, you'd need to be a programmer. Nowadays, in more of the more advanced systems, so you both have advanced features, but then they're also very easy to use, such as this. So in summary, what did we learn? The first thing is your list. Clearly what I mean by organic list, don't buy a list or don't rent a list if you can help it. And then maybe segment your list based on clients, prospects, referral sources. Think about a design, whether your design needs to be unique, of course, very much mimicking your homepage. And then it should be mobile friendly because the trend is clearly, it's already a very high percentage of mobile readers and it's only going to increase. So what's happening really is that I may see your first email on my iPhone, and then I may, if it's something of interest, I may leave it there as unread, and then I'm going to, when I get back to the office, I'm going to look at it on my laptop or my desktop. So it's, the same email can be seen on multiple screens, and you just don't know which one they're going to see it on and which one they'll engage with. So it's really important to be mobile friendly. The type of email for your business. Everybody should be sending a newsletter because the newsletter really is just like top of mind, once a month, a little bit reminding them of your brand and with something of value. An e-blast is worthwhile if you're doing some kind of events or promotions. And any kind of automated drips are really terrific because they work while you sleep. So it requires you to do a little bit of work, but then once it's done, you don't have to do a thing. And then some advanced features like we talked about, some segmentation, some triggers, cart abandonment, form abandonment, all kinds of things like that. If you have a CRM, whether it's Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, you have blogs, you have social media, really important to think about how we integrate with them. And in some cases it's easier than others, but think about what I said in the beginning where email marketing is kind of the glue that puts it all together, so we do need to integrate it. And lastly, and probably one of the most important things is if you're just sending emails and you never look at results, then it's kind of like an open loop system. You got to close the loop. You got to look at it, whether it's once a month, once a quarter, review the results, and then test to optimize, whether you do an A/B test or something else. So it's really, really important from that perspective. So with this I end. I have some time for questions. You do have my email address there, amir@openmoves.com. You have my phone number. If you're sending emails today and you'd like some feedback, then by all means just shoot me an email. If you want to get what we're basically offering anybody that if you don't have an OpenMoves account, we'll give you a free trial account for 30 days where you can try the system and you can send some emails for free. We'll also give you a $250 discount or a setup fee, and obviously you get a link to this presentation. So any questions?
I just want to say thanks. This was really great information.
Thank you. I hope that was worthwhile. Any other questions?
Amir,
or compliments?
We run a small interior design business in the Bay Area in California, and our list, we're working with a couple hundred people as opposed to thousands and thousands. So do you have any suggestions on kind of analytics or metrics or A/B testing or things like that when it's done on such a small scale?
Sure. How often do you send an email today?
Well, right now we're at like once a quarter. We just started our email marketing program.
Okay. So I would say that once a quarter is almost a waste of time because if you think about it, let's say you have, I'll pick a number, 400 names on your list, okay, which sounds like maybe even a little bit more than what you have. And if you send once a quarter, and we said that the typical open rate at best case maybe is 20-25%, what that means is that on average they'll see your email once a year. And with marketing, it's all about frequency and consistency. So I would suggest, first of all, to just increase the frequency to once a month. And I'm happy if you want to send me an example of your email to take a look at it. But basically in interior design, I would think that and we have a bunch of interior design clients, maybe you're just highlighting one project that you did with one or two images. What would be ideal is, I don't know if you have a blog, but if you had a blog, you could talk about that case or that project on the blog, and the email just pushes people to the blog, and then they can see other things as well. So in that way, a blog is great for showcasing things like projects and case studies. Like interior design would work great. So I would increase the frequency. I would look at the results, both in terms of opens, but more importantly, really click to open, especially if you have a decent website or a blog. So you really want them to entice them to go to your website and see your portfolio and see everything else that you're doing. I think a few hundred names is perfectly fine. We actually have a few clients. Usually there are like architects, designers that have typically smaller lists because it's more local. But when you get a client, it means a lot to you. So, but I think the consistency and frequency is really important. The template should kind of look the same, but every time you're highlighting a different project, I would send at least once a month. If it's only 300-400 names, probably doing a A/B test on subject line is the only thing that I would do. But I would do that really only after you arrive at some consistency. you can imagine that you can't really do a test like that if you're sending once a quarter.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep. Any other questions? And again, feel free if you want me to just critique or review something that you're doing today, just shoot me an email. Happy to do that. Any other questions? All right, great. Well, I really thank you. I think we have your names that have signed up, so I'll provide Jan with the information to send you a link to this PowerPoint and to our a free trial, as well as, and then obviously if you decide to work with us, you'll get a tab discount. So thank you very much, and wherever you are in the U.S. And in Canada, hope you have a nice day.